poses that question to the decision-making level, and here's Jeffrey now, CIOs, CTOs, et cetera, that number drops to about 40% or so. There's a huge gap there, big gap between what's kind of really going on and what a lot of the decision makers know is actually going on. And Jeffrey can go into a lot greater detail. Jeffrey, I'm going to ask you to sit up front here, okay? Come on, man.
Nice try.
The reason that when we put this together, if you remember, for those of you that attended last year, we did a national panel from 10 to 11, and then from 11 to 12, we did a local panel. And we wanted to give you guys a perspective as to what people on a national level are saying about open source and what their experiences were, and then what their experiences were on the local level. This year, we decided to break it up into a breakout session, actually do a separate session. So I wanted to get CIOs that were local from large companies here in the area, but then we thought about it a little further, and we wanted to bring in a lot of the national level people to engage in dialogue, to actually have a discussion about the issues that you're facing, that you've confronted in your business. And then, for example, Vince Simonowitz is not here, but I'm going to speak for him in his absence. He is the CIO for the city of Columbia. Support, open source support. Hey Todd, if I integrate or implement open source, support is a big issue for me. If I do that, won't I end up in the end spending as much money on the technology as I would have had I gone proprietary? Had I just paid more on the front end, been assigned a customer service rep, won't the dollars kind of even out? He's posed that question to me before. So those are the types of questions that I want to discuss here today. All right, so I tell you what, again, Jeffrey, who is with Forrester Research, again, looks at these issues all day long. So I wanted him to sit up front, him to participate in this when it's appropriate, and then give these guys an opportunity to kind of voice some concerns or talk about some issues. And then Jim, I ask you guys, and Deb, you guys have been in this business a long time. And to have an opportunity to interact with CIOs and to answer some of those concerns or answer some of those questions is very unique. It doesn't happen often. So for the benefit of the audience and the benefit of the attendees, I wanted you guys to see that back and forth, because you know, these decision makers are having an impact, and they're controlling basically what technology is being used in the corporation. They're driving the choices that are being made, and to have them again pose some of those questions to the people that have been in this industry for a very long time. And if you guys have questions, if you guys want to pose questions, this is interactive. I don't want you guys to be bored. Don't leave here having snooze for 30 minutes. All right, we do not want that. So again, what I'm going to do, Dale, can we start with you? Just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what company you're with, and keep it very short.
Very short. My name's Dale Johnston. I work for a CIO at a company called Eaton's and Avant. We're a shopping center developer up and down the East Coast. Our technology base is a retail landlord. We have to know our customers, and our customers being retailers and their customers being the shoppers. We need to be very innovative in how we approach things. Retail is a fad-driven business. You know, what people want, where they want it, when they need it, is an ever-changing adaptation of our business. And so, you know, the days of choosing technology for our business, I'm sure this will be along the panel, are driven by what innovation we need. The version of operating system on our desktop, whether it's Linux or you know, Microsoft, whatever, it is a financial decision. How much innovation comes from an operating system? It comes from your people. And so I think our view of open source, after Jeffrey, I was on the wrong side of Jeffrey's equation when he asked the question of what open software you have in-house. I learned after he self-embarrassed myself that I didn't know what we had. But now that I know, I'm happy with that investment, happy with how it's supported. It's largely in the development area. But again, development, the people drive that innovation. I think where we're looking at making innovation is in the business intelligence area with BERT, in the document management area with Drupal, and the intranet. It's when you can grab those tools as innovators in a company and build a solution that moves things forward. That's when you'll see the market share swing dramatically. Because right now we have SharePoint and it's in our shop, and that's when people just reach out and build a tool. So when is open source moving from a technology decision to an innovator decision with the communities that are built up around those tools, Drupal, et cetera? That's my big question.
Okay, and we'll answer that. Randy, if you want to.
Randy Senn, and I'm the CIO at SCANA Corporation. SCANA is the holding company for our electric and gas operations here in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. Our IT group, supports all operations in the company, from gas operations to electric distribution, transmission operations to generation. A big focus for us is the construction of 2 new nuclear plants. And one of the things that's a big impact to the IT group today is the new generation of nuclear will be a digital controlled operation, whereas in the past all kind of existing nuclear operations are kind of analog based. So just the influence that we'll have with that is a big challenge for us. In fact, we're seeing a big challenge for our IT groups, more of the integration of information technology and operational technology. Our groups are much more heavily involved in operating equipment now and so forth in the groups within the company. So how is open source going to fit in that area is going to be very interesting. But I would tell you that for the most part, open source is not significantly in the mainstream of our solutions, but it's starting to have an influence, especially in our developer community and some of the ideas and some of the approaches. Definitely there's an influence there, and we're trying to embrace that. We have 20 people here today from our shop, just trying to understand some of the concepts, understand some of the opportunities that are there.
All right, Khush.
I'm Tata. I'm with the South Carolina Technical College System. We're a system of 16 technical and community colleges. We do education and workforce development. Hopefully we'll be training a lot of folks for Randy's nuclear plant one of these days. And so that's what we concentrate on. And as the economy has dipped, our enrollment has shot through the roof because of people retooling and re-educating, rearming themselves to get back into the workforce. And so at the same time, our budgets have been cut literally in half from the state. And so technology is an area where the system has looked to more and more in innovative ways to deliver instruction, training, and other such methods. And so we are constantly looking for those ways to do things. From an open source standpoint, it's really all about how can it help towards the integration into our environment right now. We use a lot of proprietary tools, at the top of the list being ERP type systems, which are very proprietary in nature, but even around those, we've learned to work as a community to develop ways to innovate those systems in areas that they can't touch or reach. We're creating silos of sort of community source type effort collaboration across our colleges. So we're looking to see how this can work to bridge these big enterprise silo systems across our campuses together to make us more effective in delivering these services.
I'm Ravinda. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at...
if you guys pass this around. There you go.
Oh, yeah, right.
We only have one.
My name is Ravinda. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Blue Cross Blue Shield, South Carolina. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. We have 28 plus subsidiaries, and we are one of the major users of open source based products. And as we get into discussions, we can talk a little more. We use a lot of open source based products, Eclipse based products, WebSphere Portal, and I think the value that we bring to the open source community is to enable some of our developers to use the new tools and the libraries and influence companies like IBM to incorporate that into their product so that we can get the support and all, because we are in the main commercial line of business. We do a lot of healthcare processing. We are one of the largest healthcare processors for all the claims for the US government. So we have to have 24/7 support, and our subsidiaries, some of them who develop software, they use open source tools, open source product like JBoss, Red Hat, and Linux and other stuff. In the main corporate area, we use Linux in the virtualization believe it or not, on the mainframe. We are one of the largest Linux virtualized environment in the world, and I think that is just astonishing. In the last 3 years, we had no virtualization, but we moved everything from a Windows environment. All the servers have been consolidated into virtualization on Linux. Our core, if you look at your mobile application, if you have any mobile access, it all runs under Linux on the mainframe, all in service-oriented architecture. And
very cool. Sure. I don't want to break your eardrums. So my name is David O'Berry, and I'm the Director of IT Systems and Services for Probation. My predilection is actually the opposite way. I always go to open source first and have for a long time. And I guess it really comes from probably from, to begin with, it was a money thing. The question Vince and I have been back and forth about that whole situation, and I'm not going to try to steal any thunder here, but my whole point the entire time is that there's sunk cost either way. Okay, even if at the end of the day you end up spending as much or whatever, there's a certain amount of visibility that the community can give you that cannot be replicated by any commercial company. And I've been on the opposite end of those black boxes that can just terrorize a project based on whatever's going on and having to wait for things to happen. I'd rather know the problems that I'm going to have, or at least have a visibility point into those. Because my whole goal is to add, a minute a day to every consumer that uses my products, whatever I do. I don't care whether that's at Probation or wherever else. So from an open standards perspective, I'm very, 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 very religious about keeping things as open as possible. So again, that may not be the mentality in the state necessarily, maybe more of an education mentality, but that I think has allowed us to add a lot of personal productivity savings to the agency as a whole. In my opinion, that the human race will contribute to its own survival if given the chance, and that's what the community is about.
Thank you, Dave. My name is Jim Jagelski. I'm with the Apache Software Foundation, also an engineer with Red Hat. In a previous life, I was also a CTO, believe it or not, and with a company called Avant before we were bought by VMware. And part of my job back then was to basically help people decide why open source made sense for them. The reason why you, for example, may want to go with open source may not be the reason why she will as well. There's a lot of reasons why open source most probably makes sense in your environment. And so there really isn't this cookie cutter approach that open source is good, open source is bad. You have to look at your use cases and what your environment is. But chances are very, very good that there's a spot for open source inside there.
Hi, I'm Deb Bryant. I'm from Oregon State University's Open Source Lab. We are hosts to Linux Foundation's infrastructure and a number of other high-impact open source projects. My personal background and context, I am a recovering bureaucrat. I was formerly the state deputy CIO for the state of Oregon, which is where I got my government geek and technology bureaucracy from. Before that, I was from the private sector. I had P&L responsibility for a publicly traded ISP. ISPs are where what was eventually called open source really became hardened, and we became very familiar with the fact that open source was something that an enterprise could depend on. So I have multiple perspectives there, and I appreciate being invited to interlope on someone else's panel. I hope I can add to the conversation.
Deb, the reason you were asked to sit on the panel at the last minute, I might add, she's a very good sport, is because, again, you do have the private sector experience, you do have the government sector experience, now you're at the educational institution as well, so you really truly covered the gamut as well. Jim, you also. So when we discuss these issues, these panel members have really seen it from every angle. They bring some experience to the table. So anyway, why don't we start, again, that's sort of the issue that we talked about before, at least make the first issue from a support perspective. Again, I really wish Vince was here, because Vince would convey this question much better than I can. But from a support perspective, Jim, what would you say if someone says, again, hey, very much the first